Hello, and welcome to the Arteries. We're a weekly podcast where we talk to people who do creative things. I'm your host, Noël Duplaa. This week, I got to sit down with Stephen Kerr of WOB. They build themselves as a live drum and bass electronica band, and to be honest, that's even underselling it. They're a band that managed to take that whole building tribal frenzy of dance music and combine it with the raw power of a live rock band. A lot of this conversation is about balance, finding the balance between always aiming for perfection but being able to let go of an imperfect song because it turns out they'll never end up perfect, threading the line between electronic music and live instruments, paying attention to production detail while still being able to build entire songs from a malfunctioning AC adapter, and whether maybe lyrics sometimes should be about carrying the groove, about the actual sounds of the words. So our guest this week, Stephen Kerr.
What were we chatting about? Because I remember I often get that now. I've realised where like you're talking to someone before you start the thing.
You're having a great casual chat and then you press the red button. Yeah.
So we were talking about, perfectionism, I suppose, in music.
We were talking about perfectionism in recording.
Yeah.
And how it's good to be a perfectionist. But then I think the main thing with music is eventually it just becomes like a published format somewhere on a CD or on the internet or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's just, you should just be happy with it then, because you don't really have any other choice than to be happy with it. Yeah. Like that's the end of the creative process. It's over then.
Because your band are kind of at that meeting point between electronic music, like pure electronic music, and live music, where like, you know, you're using samples and stuff, but you're triggering them live. Jolly's playing live drums, but often is triggering samples with the pads on the drums. So yeah, I mean, like how much of your writing process is sitting down with grids and how much of it is jamming stuff out?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes it can be, I mean, even if you're jamming, you're still like, anything you're doing with rhythm is all gridded in your head, and you're still like, I would still have those samples and sequencers. Like there's still computers, even if we're jamming it live, there's still computers involved all the time. If that's what your question was.
Yeah, sorry, no, it's badly phrased. I meant less like when you're working with the grids and sequencers and that kind of thing, there's a lot more kind of planning. It's more cerebral, I guess. Whereas when you're jamming, it's a lot more instinct.
Yeah, I try to avoid that as much as I can, even if I'm on the computer.
Okay.
So if I am putting down some, let's say, a sequence track, because that seems to be what we're talking about now.
Sure.
So some sequence synthesizer, like I would try not to program in the notes and try not to program in the filter changes and everything. I would instead take out the MIDI controller or take out the actual synth and do it with the knobs and the buttons and whatever I can.
Okay.
And as much as possible, make being in the studio the same as being on stage.
Okay.
And try and work the same way all the time. It's not exactly the same, obviously, because you can still stop halfway through a song, or you can still play a song for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Which you can't really do on stage all the time.
Sure.
Or you can, but like everybody leaves.
It depends
or,
on the
you can sit there for an hour playing the same drum loop again and again and slowly changing bits, but I would still have the music playing all the time. I wouldn't stop it and start to write it down like people do in those old have you ever seen Reaper, the DAW?
No.
So it's like, it's just lines of functions, like when you see MIDI note events in your DAW, everything is done like that, like the audio and the MIDI and everything.
Okay.
So that's like what you're talking about, kind of, that's the extreme of that, of like, instead of this happening on the second beat of the fourth bar, this needs to happen.
Yeah.
And then you press play and you're like, but instead I try to like have it playing all the time, and because you can now.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
Because like in terms of the perfectionism, I was saying like one way that I kind of try to get past the snowblindness that can come when you're just focusing in on minute aspects of a mix is to focus on particular moments in a song. For me, in order for the song to work, I kind of hone in on, 2 or 3 moments that you need to have some kind of physical reaction to.
Yeah.
So then it becomes less about, is everything perfectly in balance? Is the EQing right? And it becomes more about, am I getting a physical reaction from that moment in the song? There's no question there.
No, there isn't really, is there?
But
Has
yeah,
that ever happened to me? I don't know. That's an interesting tactic. I don't know if I ever do that.
like
I
what
think when I get to a place where I don't know how to listen to it anymore, what I would usually do is take it and listen to it somewhere else. Like
Okay.
I would put it on my phone and listen to it on the worst headphones I have while cooking dinner, and like really listen to it in a different situation, or take it and listen to it on some really great bassy amp, like actually an amp, and play it through that and see how it sounds there, and actually just take it somewhere else and take it out of context. And that's how I try to get past those moments.
That's a really good
Usually.
idea, actually. Yeah.
And then don't listen to it is really important. We were
Yeah.
kind of talking about that as well earlier. Like, don't listen to it at all. Listen to some other music. Listen to The Motorway, and then listen to it, and it'll sound much different again.
You start actually reconnecting with it as a piece
Yeah.
of music rather
Yeah.
than
This is what I've been doing for 8 weeks straight.
yeah.
Whatever this torturous thing is.
Let's just go back. So tell me a bit. Okay, where'd you grow up? Where'd you?
I grew up in Fairhouse in Dublin.
Okay.
I played the piano first. Was the first instrument I played since I was very young. I played the trumpet as a teenager and played in a concert band, that kind of stuff. The first time I got a synth was when I was maybe 15. Actually, no, because before that I had an old Roland keyboard
Okay.
from sometime in the 80s, like before things stopped being either keyboards or synths, and people
Yeah.
actually bought synths to make piano sounds.
Yeah.
That kind of synth.
Right.
It had like square, triangle saw, and you could mix them with sliders,
Okay.
and like it
Sounds
sounded
all right.
It didn't sound all right.
No.
Though. It sounded so nasty. I still have it. It's very
Yeah.
fun to play with, and like nostalgia.
Yeah.
But I think that was where I first started to realize you could make sounds rather than just play the notes. You could
Yeah.
also create the sound that the notes were going to play,
Yeah.
which was fun. Like that's why I like playing what I play.
And what
It's
kind
like-
of
You work on the tone and the timbre as well as just the notes.
what kind of music were you into at the time? Which came first, the synth or the synth music?
I always liked the ELO,
Okay.
so that's synth stuff. I always like Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
very synthy. I think that would have been the biggest childhood synth-based influence.
Right.
Is like some weird Pink Floyd songs. Do you ever listen to? They have this album called Final Cut,
Okay.
which is literally a story, like a play about
Sure.
World War II. And at one point, a fighter pilot dies, and the whole song is about him floating down.
Okay.
And at the start, there's this massive roar of an airplane.
Yeah.
And it's just mental. Like, why is that in a piece of music? Why
Yeah.
did we do that? You're supposed to play your instruments, but instead, for 30 seconds, just an airplane flies by and crashes. So I think as a kid, I always enjoyed that those things were involved in music.
Yeah.
Sound effects, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of strong visual image as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. In a really, really literal way.
Yeah. And so there was that. I mean, did the concept album of it appeal to you?
I don't know if I even realized that as a kid, to
Yeah.
be honest. Definitely the idea of a song having a concept appealed
Yeah.
to me as a kid.
Like kind of the story element, the narrative element.
Yeah. I don't know if I like that at all anymore. But as a child, that was something that definitely gripped me. Like, if I think of any songs I can remember as a kid,
Yeah.
I remember them because of the story that was in them. I don't write music with stories in it, to
Yeah.
be honest. And I wouldn't listen to it now.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just what you're able to remember from your childhood is stories. So that's why you remember those songs.
You are at maximum story as a kid. Like you're
Definitely.
you know, kind of
That's
learning
why,
the structure of that stuff. So yeah, what age did you started playing piano at, like what, 4 or 5, or was it a little later?
Yeah, even earlier, I think maybe.
You had a
3,
piano in the
just
house?
always played the piano, yeah.
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 And musical family, or were your parents?
Yeah, my dad's very musical. Plays too many instruments. Like, I
Yeah.
think we have one of everything at home.
Right.
Like that kind of situation.
Okay.
And just plays whatever he can. And I think when I was a kid, he would have taught me to play the blues and stuff like that on the piano. So that's what I would have known from him, and then would have gone to lessons, like classical piano lessons after that as well. which I would have known a bit of from before, and then kind of learned how to read and how to play Bach, who's amazing.
Right.
Still my favorite musician.
Yeah.
Bach is awesome.
But so your dad, like, was your dad playing in bands and stuff when he was younger? Or?
Yeah, I think he used to play in punk bands when he was a kid.
Okay.
That kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely that's why I ended up playing that kind of like rock music, I guess, if you want to call it that.
And did you start off with playing rock music? Like, what's your...
Yeah. The first time I played in a band that gigged, it was like indie rock music.
Okay.
Is what we played. And I would play piano and synth.
Mm-hmm. How many people were in that band?
There were 5 of us. It was like a normal indie rock band, 2 guitars, bass, drums, keyboards. And actually it was in that band that I started to play electronic music with instruments, because we actually did some other weird covers than that. We covered Calvin Harris and things like that.
Okay.
And played those on our instruments. And that might actually be where that whole thing started.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
And had you started messing around with production by that stage, or?
Yeah, I think I had started writing music like on the computer since I was in my teens at some stage.
What program were you using?
GarageBand. It was definitely GarageBand for a long time. One time I did a gig and I brought my iMac to the gig, including keyboard and mouse, and set it all up on a table and played sounds from GarageBand. Back in the day.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I always think of that, that Liam Gallagher insult of, like, I don't want to go watch a band send emails on stage. So like, and this stuff, the production stuff, were you pitching that to the band, or was that stuff that you were keeping separate?
Mostly separate. That stuff never really ended up being in music because it didn't make sense in those kind of bands.
Yeah.
And doesn't make sense in those kind of bands still if I play with that kind of music. Like if you have 5 instruments and only one of them is an electronic instrument, I don't find it makes sense to write that music on a computer.
Yeah.
It makes sense to record tracks into the computer and use it as a recording tool. But I don't think you can go and write a trumpet line on your keyboard. I've definitely done it before. Yeah. But I, like, at this stage, I think, no, just write it on the trumpet or write it on the piano, which is a great tool for writing. Or, like, if you're a guitarist, write it on the guitar. Yeah. Or if you are actually someone who plays music on the computer as your first instrument, then write it on the computer. But otherwise, fake trumpet sounds and stuff.
Oh, right, yeah, in terms of the actual recorded thing. Because one thing I was going to say is, like, I often find a trick, let's say if you're writing stuff on the guitar and you just get to a point where you hate the guitar as an instrument and there's nothing more you can pull out of it. So bringing a song that you've written on a guitar and figuring it out on the piano and playing it there, you can end up going down much different routes. Because like I often found I would write a lot of like trumpet lines or violin lines on the piano because I can't play the trumpet or the violin. But so as a result then...
They're actually piano lines being played on the trumpet.
Exactly. Yeah. But as a result, like violinists and trumpeters tend to be like, I would never think of playing it in that particular way.
Yeah, which can be good. Yeah, that can work out as a really good thing.
Yeah.
But then there's so many things on the violin that you can't do on the piano.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But like, I think you miss out on a lot unless you're really good at it. Like, it's hard to write a violin line on the piano. And unless you're specifically going for, I want this to sound like something really weird on the violin, like you're missing out on so many cool things you can do on the violin.
Well, like sliding up between notes and stuff.
Yeah. Perfect example. Like there are no fixed notes on the violin and you don't think of that when you're on the piano. And you won't write it into the line. Like you might think, oh, and they could do a slide here, but I can't hear it now, so it's not essential to the line.
Yeah.
Whereas if I wrote it on a violin, or I asked the violin player to write it, then they would come up with something that is purposely written for that instrument.
Yeah, like I can go both ways on it in my head. Like if you're writing strings parts as opposed to a part for a particular string instrument, there's a lot of overlap between that and say like an organ.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
In terms of the feel of it.
And writing proper like 4-part pieces.
Yeah. So it's more about the harmony between the instruments then.
Yeah, like I could definitely write a 4-part thing on the piano.
Yeah.
And it could be played by any group of instruments.
Yeah.
Because, that's a different thing. That's like an arrangement rather than a line.
Yeah, because you're kind of subsuming the specific characteristics of the actual instrument.
Yeah, I suppose so, for the sake of the ensemble.
And so in terms of you're writing all these electronic or, well, like computer-based compositions, were you writing in any of the bands that you were in?
Like if I play in bands with singers, like those were rock bands, indie rock bands, generally the singer in that kind of band wants to sing their own lyrics.
Okay.
Which is great, and I think they should. And then in the same way, I would rather play my own keyboard line.
Right.
And it doesn't always work exactly that way, but in my experience, it mostly works out that way. You end up having maybe 2 or 3 ideas and you put them together and they become a song. And that's how bands work, I find.
So the bands you were in, they weren't kind of bringing in songs and then expanding on them?
They would be doing that. Yeah, definitely. But I think you're probably the exception to that rule in that you write things quite accurately by yourself. I think most bands I've been involved in, people would vaguely write a song and then the musicians would add 70% of the song.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the way you work, you would bring 70% of the song and then the other people would add the...
Well, I think CFIT was kind of the like, I mean, I've been in 3 bands really.
Yeah.
And Tidal District and Not Monsters is very much, we'd bring in bits of songs and jam them out in the room and then write songs from the kind of like 40-minute jams. Not Monsters is usually I'll bring in like the skeleton of a song and then we'll build it together. But CFIT, I think, was primarily just because like the first album was me in a room.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think
which is cool. Or like for me and Jolly, we're ending up in a similar situation because there is only 2 of us, but we do need other musicians, especially like singers. We have involved a lot. Yeah. So you do have to tell other people what to do because they just aren't there at the time you're writing the song, and they can't have an input.
They're not involved
logistically.
In the process.
They're just not there. It'd be cool if they were, but you can't always plan ahead in that way. Normally, you write the song and then you think, "Oh, we actually need a singer in this song."
I mean, your songs in electronic music, obviously, you can have the focus of the singer, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like about electronic music is what I think is like the root of that weird thing in it is that it equally comes from folk music and rock music, and also from kind of like classical and art music, because it's quite a new form of music in general. And like if I go back further than the ELO Pink Floyd years, like what is electronic music before then? It's people like Stockhausen and very little folk music. If you go past the 50s in electronic music, it's all kind of composers, like people who consider themselves art musicians or classical musicians, like or whatever you want to call that. Yeah. Or like you go back to the 30s or the 20s and people were making weird recordings and strange instruments and theremins and stuff like that. And there's a lot of experimentation in it. That means it's not always about songs, and it's not always, like you're saying, it doesn't always have the lead vocal up front and the hooks. It can do whatever it wants, I think. Or not whatever it wants, but it can do a few different things.
Although then you do get the kind of insanely specific tribal subsections of that.
Yeah, which is really weird. Yeah. But I guess that comes from that as well. Like, because there's so much you can do in it, it's become really subcategorized. Yeah. And like me and Jolly say that we play live drum and bass. Drum and bass, I think, is like 50 or 60 different genres. Yeah. And that's just like the ones that people are okay with. There's also those like 300 subgenres of each of those 50 genres, and people like to categorize things. Yeah. Like, I'm happy.
Is there a specific, because I know that always weirded me out, the way that like the BPM would often define.
Yeah.
Like, is there a BPM categorization for drum and bass?
Definitely. 175.
Really?
Yeah. Or when we play live, I have a tempo control set up that controls my computer, and that tempo control goes from 165 to 180. Okay. And we never go outside of that.
Right.
Sometimes we go into halftime. We don't really go into double time because that puts you at like 300 BPM.
Jolly human.
Or, you know, you can imply different speeds by like going into triplets for a while, going to halftime for a while, going to quarter time even at that speed. Because quarter time of 180 is 45, which is okay to use as a tempo for a very slow section.
Yeah.
But the actual clock is still always
Okay.
because the computers need a clock to listen to.
Okay, and so WOB begins. I know I had Jolly on, and he was talking about how WOB, in theory, starts with him and Paul messing around before.
Yes, in the Amazing Few.
Amazing Few.
Yeah.
Sets. So how did you come into it?
I always just used to hang around at the Amazing Few gigs a lot because of Sheena,
Sure.
who played saxophone with them.
Sheena's your girlfriend.
Sheena is my girlfriend. Sheena Styles of the Amazing Few.
Yeah.
So I was hanging around with them a lot. So they would have both known that I play keyboards, and it's hard to do a drum and bass band without someone playing some sort of electronics.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I got asked along in the first place. So they used to play during practice and before gigs. They would mess around and jam at those kind of fast tempos, and Paul has an amazing collection of pedals.
Yeah.
So they would have, that's where the electronics would come from when they were doing that, was all from the pedals. And then when they decided to take it and actually make it into a band of some sort, that's where I came in.
Yeah.
With the bleeps and the bloops and the noise.
And you're the WOB of it, really, aren't you? You're the low end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where those sounds come from. Yeah, definitely.
And then, okay, so like constructing the first EP. Am I right in saying you constructed the first EP, but Paul had left the band by the time?
When it started, he was there, and when it ended, he was gone.
Yeah.
So it was somewhere in the middle, but that took a long time to record as well.
Yeah. What was the recording process for that?
We recorded drums. We had the songs written pretty well, and we had gigged them a lot, and we had fairly solid demos of all of them, so we knew exactly what we wanted them to sound like. So it was actually recording. There was very little creativity in the studio. So we recorded drums, we did some live Rhodes, and we did some guitars.
Okay.
And then we got them mixed, bare bones mix in the studio, and then we took all those mixes and we chopped them up the way we wanted to chop them up, and put lots of strange effects and recorded all the synths in with them and all that, and probably some more guitars along the way. And then we took them back to the studio again and got them mixed, not that, like when we were mixing them, we were producing them, creating them, and then we got them technically mixed again.
Who was mixing them for you?
Sean Hurley from Area 94 Studios.
Okay. It's a good plug.
No, he did a great job. He's so good.
Yeah.
We've recorded with him before for live videos that we did.
Videos
we have on YouTube. So he knows exactly the kind of sound we're going for. He knew what we were trying to do. And yet he also knows how to record a live band. Because we're in that weird place where we need someone who has the technical skill to mic up a drum kit, but also understands that like the snare is supposed to be at 400 hertz instead of 200,
Yeah.
which is like a small detail, but completely changes it into an electronic sound.
Right.
So he knows all those small details as well as knowing how it's supposed to be done for a rock band.
Yeah.
So we can get the sound in the first place and then make the sound into what we are trying to get.
I mean, the fact that you're essentially doing rock is the wrong word, but like rock versions of electronic stuff.
Yeah, we definitely are. Like the instruments we have, or even the places that we play them, like we
Yeah.
play them on live PAs.
Yeah.
So it is being played like rock music, essentially.
Yeah.
No matter how much we try to change it, that's
Yeah.
how we play it. So there's one thing, like there's an old trick when you're writing a synth bass line that if it has kind of a bit of a wobble in it, or an LFO, that the higher it goes, you speed up the wobble.
Okay.
And that's to copy when those were actually sampled.
Okay.
So if you sample
Okay.
something, the higher it gets, the faster you're playing the
Yeah.
sample. So you speed up all those little things to make it sound like
Yeah.
it's actually a sample when it's not a sample, it's a real synth playing.
Yeah.
So we do lots of tricks like that. Like in drum and bass, normally you take hip hop drums or like funk drums or whatever drums you want. Lots
Sure.
and lots of James Brown actually.
Yeah.
So normally you take those drums and you speed up the break
Yeah.
from 120 BPM up to 180 BPM.
Okay.
So as a result of that, all the drums are the wrong pitch.
Right.
So Jolly's snares, we always just tweak them up a little bit
Yeah.
and tune them too high. And his kicks are always tuned too high. And the bass is actually lower than the kick a lot of the time.
Okay.
Or it all fits in this weird stack that doesn't, it's not the normal way to do it. There's like sub bass and
Yeah.
then above that is kick. So there's like the sub at the bottom and then the kick and then either the bass comes in next or the snare or sometimes the other way around.
Yeah.
Which isn't the normal structure of how things fit on top of each other in terms of frequencies.
Yeah. So the kick isn't fully linking with the bass essentially.
The kick sometimes sits on top of the bass.
Yeah.
And they do, like, then if you're producing electronic music on your computer, you can do things like ducking and sidechain compression and stuff to make everything fit, but we can't do that live. Or it would be fun if we could. If we had enough gear, we could. But
Yeah.
that's kind of the challenge of what we do. So, like, we write the grooves in such a way as it sounds like the bass is ducking out whenever the kick comes in.
But it's
and
actually
things
in
like
the
that.
writing.
It's actually just the way it's written, yeah,
That's fucking cool.
which is fun.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things we get up to.
Because that's so interesting. Like the writing from such a technical perspective as well as.
And it's like what we were talking about earlier about, I was saying you shouldn't write a violin line on the piano.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we do all the time in WOB, is write for the wrong instrument, because I'm pretending to be a DAW and I'm pretending that all of this music is coming from the computer, but it's not. It's coming from the drums and from the keyboard.
Yeah.
So while I say it's wrong to do, that is literally all we do in WOB, is like try to fake the sound of a producer
Yeah.
and instead play it with a band.
It would never occur to me that the amount of tricks you have to put in to be able to do it like without running it through all those kind of production tricks, because electronic music is so much of it is down to
It is just production,
really complex production. Yeah.
And that's when you listen to electronic music like that, like the kind that we play, drum and bass and stuff, like the production is something you listen to and something you enjoy with that kind of music.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of find ways around that, find ways that people can still enjoy that side of it,
Yeah.
even though we're not producing it that way. Jolly also has some strange things with his hi-hats and his cymbals that took him a long time to realize
Okay.
that, like
techniques of playing.
yeah, or not to realize, sorry, that sounds bad, like that he worked out over lots of hard work like and struggle. But yeah, to make it so mechanical and to sound like an 808 hi-hat pattern instead of to sound like a drummer. Like you actually have to take so much of the groove out and you have to take so many of the ghost notes out.
Yeah.
Ghost notes are like the bane of our music. They just, drummers don't even realize they're playing so many notes.
Yeah.
And they have to strip it back, and that's something Jolly's really good at, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it just eventually becomes way more technical and as a result becomes really tight.
What I find interesting is that you're talking about, for example, Jolly as a human drummer trying to drum as close as possible to robotic patterns and eliminating certain human elements from his drum style and his drum technique.
Yeah.
But you're still having a human drummer do it.
Yeah.
So the idea being, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the tension between what he's aiming for and what he's accomplishing is still important.
Definitely, yes. Definitely the tension is important. It would sound a lot more like a drum machine if I got a drum machine.
Almost exactly like a
Yeah,
drum machine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the same with any of the bits that I play. It would sound a lot more like a programmed bass line
Yeah.
if I didn't play it and we actually just did program the bass line.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what we do. I don't know why we do it.
No, I find that really interesting that like,
Yeah.
you know, everything you're talking about is about analyzing and perfecting certain elements
Yeah.
to like a clinical scientific degree, but your instinct is still to humanize it.
Yeah. I don't know why we do that. I don't know if I have an answer to that question. And if I was using, say, a bass synth, like a 303
Yeah.
or something, then I would look for the imperfections in that in a different way. And I'd still try and look for the imperfections to create the music. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the 303. It has a slew on it sometimes, so it'll slide from one note to the other.
Okay.
So it's really, really regulated. And sometimes you can slide to the next note instead of go regulated. And if you listen to any kind of like acid, techno acid, anything that starts with acid basically has 303 bass lines.
Okay.
And whenever those bass lines are written well, that's always taken advantage of, that it cannot sound like a drum machine.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the instinct is to humanize it so much as you have a goal of what you're trying to make, but this is the equipment you're trying to make it with. And that equipment has its own charm and character, and you're trying to bring out that character. So if we're playing live drums, there's things you can do on live drums, and those are the character of them.
Yeah.
That is the charm, and that will come out.
But ultimately the human brain still recognizes and doesn't quite trust perfection.
Yeah. First of all, I think we would have to be way better musicians to get anywhere near being that good.
Yeah.
That we would actually sound like machines. In a recording, maybe we could do it, but live, it's really hard to actually sound like a machine. But I think, like you're saying, I don't think we would go there even if we could. Like, that's not the aim. The closer you get to it, the less you want to get there, I suppose, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a challenge and it's something to aspire to, but it's not something to reach.
Yeah. And so then the tension of actually attempting to aim towards that is...
Yeah. Are we just going to call that Buddhism? We're
I'm
just going to
pretty sure
assume
it's
that's what
Buddhism.
it is. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Buddhism. We'll have to... Citation needed.
Yeah.
How much fucking around do you do? I guess like how much importance do you place on experimentation?
In general, in my life, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
And I definitely waste a few hours every day doing something that's usually pointless.
Yeah, just rabbit holes.
Yeah, like that's rarely for any specific purpose. So some of those things may end up becoming a sound in a song, or maybe I mess around on the piano for a few hours and that becomes a chord progression.
Yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't become music at all and it just becomes shit to throw in the bin. I don't know. That's why it's experimentation.
Yeah.
It's vague and can become whatever it wants.
Like for example, give us a like one that's worked.
A while ago, I was playing some music on one of these browser-based music generator things.
Okay.
So in this one, you'd click in different places on the screen, and it would do dots of different sizes, and it would turn that into a pattern of sine wave sounds.
Yes.
And then I went to check my Facebook in the next tab, and the browser was freezing, and it was supposed to be this like even 16th rhythm the whole way through, but
Yeah.
it would just freeze for like 5 seconds and then pick it up again,
Yeah.
freeze for another 3 seconds, and just randomly based on my computer not being able to handle it. So that was fun, and then I plugged it into a few like effects pedals and stuff,
Yeah.
and then realized as I was doing that the AC adapter for my what is it? It's a little Moore chorus pedal. The adapter wasn't working. So if I leaned it one way, it would die. And this was like very similar to what was happening on the computer. So
Yeah.
I changed the tab, the rhythm would get all messed up, and then I would just like tap the adapter and the chorus pedal would die and die like really dramatically. It would go and fade away. And messing around with that for a while made some strange sounds, and then that became a song.
Okay.
Like that became a song a few weeks afterwards. I think like 2 weeks afterwards, I thought, what if I take all these sounds and put some drums with it and some vocals and
Yeah.
whatever, and play being the important part of that. It's like just having fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's what came to mind when you said an example of it being a success, but it doesn't have to become something to be a success
Okay.
as well at the same time, now that I think about it.
Just like,
It doesn't ever have to get anywhere. Like you could just sit around and maybe you have something in your hand that's made of glass and the sun is coming through the window and you're looking at that piece of glass and it's making weird reflections, and that's it.
yeah,
That could be successful.
the act of keeping that muscle active.
Yeah, exactly. It's good exercise. It doesn't have to become anything to still be good exercise.
It's about being in the world, listening a certain way,
Yeah.
so that you actually pick up
Definitely.
on stuff.
Yeah.
Let your body move. Let your body move. Now you're in the groove. Let your body, let your body, let your body, let your body, let your body.
We were talking about lyrics there.
Oh yeah, we were.
So you did write lyrics,
I have written lyrics.
and are
in my
these for
life.
songs you've performed, or is this?
I have written lyrics for songs that have been performed.
Okay.
I think you can write good lyrics without strong meaning.
Yeah.
I don't think meaning is the only point of lyrics.
Yeah.
And there's the obvious case for that is like that lyrics should fit a groove.
Yeah.
Or not should, can.
Yeah.
Like Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah. The rhythmic importance.
Yes, he's a great lyricist in my opinion,
Okay.
because he can always find the best words to fit that groove.
Yeah.
He's so good at that. And I guess that what he's doing with his lyrics is he's using the different tones that his vocal cords can produce to work best with that melody and that rhythm.
Yeah.
You can also write lyrics that people can sing,
Mm-hmm.
is another really valuable part of lyrics. And something very cool that music can do is get people to interact a lot.
Yeah.
And there's certain bands and certain types of music where people can sing along to your music, and that's amazing.
Oasis really
And-
springs to mind with that.
Yeah, I love singing along to Oasis.
Yeah.
But no, you definitely can sing along to a lot of music, and
Yeah.
that's not to be knocked in any way. And again, those lyrics don't have to be smart to be able to sing along with them. In fact, usually shouldn't be. And if you can write smart lyrics that people can sing along to as well, like even better.
Yeah.
But if you can only do one of the two, it's fine for them to be singable and
Yeah.
not to be smart.
Yeah.
There's no reason to knock that. They don't have to be musically interesting to be able to sing along to them.
Mm-hmm.
They can be really musically simple, like they should be in a children's nursery rhyme. In fact, children's nursery rhyme is the perfect example of nonsensical, simple to sing lyrics.
Yeah.
I think they're all very well written, and it would be hard to argue that nursery rhymes are not well written pieces of music. If a singer is singing something, they can do more than just create that text accompaniment and do it vaguely in time with the music.
Yeah.
There's other things they can do.
And even then,
So that's why our WOB song Move goes, let your body move, let your body move.
yeah.
It is though, like that's terrible meaning.
No, that's simple.
It's kind of to the point. It's telling people what to do.
Yeah.
It's ordering them to dance. And it sometimes works.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy with those lyrics.
No, I would
And
agree.
I love how stripped back they are. There's only 2 lines in that song, and there's only 2 melodic variations of that line.
Yeah.
That's so easy to remember. And my little 3-year-old cousin sings it to me all the time. I'm like, yes, it worked.
Well, it's like it fits into your kind of brutal simplicity aesthetic.
Yeah, and I think that's like, that lyrics has been stripped down to a really, really simple, straightforward emotion.
Yeah.
A really simple melodic structure, a really simple number of characters. Like the lyrics of the song could be a tweet. But in WOB, we have a few songs that have lyrics in them. And especially now, we're trying to work with singers more. So I've actually been thinking about it recently over the last few months. Like, where do lyrics have a place in this music that we're playing?
Yeah.
Because the place, like we were talking about earlier, the place of the vocalist is strange in electronic music, and it's not well defined, kind of.
Well, often they're like a hook. They're like a lead line.
Yeah, like it's still a melody instrument, and it does have that character of like, it's extra memorable because the words make it easier to remember.
Yeah.
So that one line is usually the line that people remember from the song, which is strange because like we spent so much time trying to make the drums and the bass fit together and the synth fit on top of that and the vocals fit in there as well. But they're still not an instrument. They're still a vocalist. They can still put words in. It's like they're the superpower they have.
Let your body move, let your body move. Now you're in the groove, let your body move. Let your body move, let your body move. Now you're in the groove, let your body move. Let your body move, let your body move. Now you're in the groove, let your body move. Let your body move, let your body move. Now you're in the groove, let your body move. Let your body move, let your body move. Now you're in the groove, let your body move. Let your body move, let your body move. Now you're in the groove, let your body move.
Thanks to Stephen Kerr for chatting with me today. If you enjoyed the show, right now you can click on a few buttons that will either let us know you want to hear more of these or let other people know about us. You know what these buttons are. And every time you press them, you make another show possible. All the music for today's show was provided by WOB. You can find links to all of their stuff on our website, thearteries.org. The show was produced and edited by David Cantan and presented by me, Noël Duplaa. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Arteries.